Hi, welcome back to Far From Eden. Oh, goodness gracious. I did a little perusal on today's installment of this book. A lot of you guys are like, tell me the name of the book. I dare not say it out loud. The YouTube overlords will be so angry and shadow ban it. And the author, I'm showing it on the screen in case anybody's just listening. I'm showing author and title of book because the overlord robots are like, uh-oh, boop, boop. So we won't say the name unless I blurt it out by accident like I did last time. So I did a little perusal, as I think I just said. And boy, oh boy, this is even more about how the guy gets trained. I have no other way to say it than that. Like, let's just get into it, you guys. So like I said, this is the 7th installment. This chapter is called Breaking Them In. I believe it's the 8th chapter. She doesn't really have them listed. She doesn't have the number of the chapter. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, it's the 8th chapter. I am sorry for what you're about to hear. But it's, you know what? A lot of you have lived it. So whatever anguish of spirit it may cause, I am willing to know the whole truth. To ensure that the happiness of man in subjugation is brought about by a woman and not by other men or some sort of animal, or even by one of the above-mentioned social systems, a series of training exercises are built into man's life, beginning at a very early age. And I want you guys to keep in mind, in 1980, I think 1980 was when the Department of Education came into existence. And from that point on, the management and control of the education system in America began to be slowly but surely dominated by women. And what that means is school was already easier for girls because of the format, sitting down, sitting still, being quiet all day, just listening. That is much easier for a little girl to do than it is for a little boy. And when little boys, when they struggle, well, something's wrong with you. You have behavioral issues. Nowadays, you have ADHD, or even back in the 90s, you have ADHD, whatever, right? You've got to have a diagnosis because you're not fitting in. But so it was always an easier setup for girls. However, if you think, past 1980, more and more gradually, the teachers and the administration were female. Used to be a lot of male teachers, and comparatively, and now not so much. I don't blame them. If you're a guy and you're in the educational system, I just feel like any second now you're going to get a false accusation of some description. It's just, you're like a sitting duck for it. But so my whole point is that when boys are young, especially if they grow up in a single mother household, you got your mom, your dad, 96 hours a month, right? If he sees you every other weekend. And then you go to school and you've got female teachers and female administrators, right? Female, 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 female. All of your adult influences are female. So bear that in mind. And if there are any women watching, bear that in mind. Try to put yourself in that situation as a little boy. And all male teachers and male teachers, right? Actually, things would be a lot better for all of us. But still, you'd be like, it's a lot of men, right? And I'm a little girl. Who am I looking to as an example of how I'm supposed to be? It would be tricky. So think of that. Think of what these little boys, what their experience is like, and how it is for them going up. And bear that in mind as Ms. Vilar demonstrates the training the men go through. It's just disgusting. It is fortunate for women that the male infant is under her close jurisdiction, as it is easier to train him then. And by the natural process of selection, the very women who are best suited to training men are the ones who reproduce themselves. The others are incapable of reproducing themselves anyway. The mere fact that a man is accustomed from his earliest years to have women around, to find their presence normal, their absence abnormal, tends to make him dependent on women in later life. I would also add that the presence of men to them is abnormal, and the absence of men is normal. And that's not good. Absolutely not good for them. But this dependency would not be serious, for a life without women would in that case mean nothing more than a change of scenery, just as someone born in the mountains might go and live in the plains. Although he might long nostalgically for his mountain home, he is unlikely to go back. Other things become more important in his life. It would hardly be in the best interests of women if they only inspired in men a vague romantic nostalgia, felt only on Sundays or when away from home, having no direct consequences. She takes care that man is directly trained for a particular purpose. He must work and put the fruits of his labor at her disposal. Woman has had this aim in view throughout the upbringing of her child, and she engenders in him a series of conditioned reflexes which cause him to produce everything to satisfy her material needs. The next thing this is making me think of when she's talking about the woman is, has birthed the child and trained him from time he's small. Think about the women who, it doesn't even have to be a woman where the father isn't in the home. Because these women, I would say, I don't know if it happened in the 80s. You guys tell me if this sounds familiar, but mothers started infantilizing I should say they continued to infantilize the child. Generally speaking, I believe the mother nurtures the child and has them very close for maybe like the first 5 years of their lives, especially with the boys. And then it's time for, little Johnny to, start to think about what it's like to be a man and go with daddy, doing things and really learn some stuff. And now obviously he's not going to go, I can't even say a lot of the stuff on YouTube, but he's not going to go bang bang on stuff and everything at 5 years old. Like, he's not going to start chopping down trees. However, it needs to start to begin, like the weaning process, right? I know if you've been around here a while, you know that I trained horses for a long time, and the weaning process is important. And in this day and age, yes, they wean them from their milk, the mothers do, but they never wean them. So these little boys continue to be afraid of the outside world. They don't take risks. They don't move out of the house ever. And they're constantly at their mother's service and at their mother's defense. And I believe this is where the male feminist comes from, because they're, at the end of the day, defending their mothers and their mother's choices and keeping her from being accountable. And it's bad. It's a real form of child abuse. It's very bad. Women has had this aim in view throughout the upbringing of her child, and she engenders him in a series of conditional reflexes which cause him to produce everything to satisfy her material needs. I read that again because in the context of what I was just saying. She does this by manipulating him from his first year of life, Consequently, by the time his education is complete, man will judge his own value by woman's estimation of his usefulness. Right? Men used to, judge it. They had their own hierarchy, and it was competency and things like that, not based on how many women they can get, what women say about them, etc. That's far too much power in our hands. Far too much power. He will be happy only when he has won her praise and produced something of value to her. One might well say that woman becomes a kind of value scale. At any given moment, a man can refer back to it and judge the value of or futility of his actions. If he spends any time on something which has no value in terms of this chart, football, for example, he will do his best to compensate quickly for this minus point by increasing his activity on the plus side of the scale, which explains why women do not object too strongly to football or other types of spectator sports. Why? Because if they do that, then they have to make it up to her. I wonder if some of you men who've been married before can relate to that. Like, I'm going to use it over you. I don't know if that's what she meant, but my woman brain is like, oh yeah, well, you got to do this, so I'm going to use that. Well, you did this, so we're going to go to the farmer's market, or you're going to put up these shelves or whatever. Goodness gracious. One of the most useful factors in the conditioning of a man is praise. Its effect is better and much more lasting than, say, hanky-panky, as it may be continued throughout a man's life. Furthermore, if praise is applied in the correct dosage, a woman will never need to scold. A man who is accustomed to a conditional dosage of praise will interpret its absence as displeasure. I mean, it sounds like, hey, we train a dog. Dogs do much better with praise than they do with scolding. It's terribly uncomfortable. As a person who has trained animals in the past, they speak about men this way, I'm like, oh my God, this is so dehumanizing. That's what it is. It's dehumanizing men. And that's the whole point of it. Like, women do not see you guys as human. They don't. If they did, they wouldn't accuse you. They wouldn't take your children from you. They wouldn't break your hearts. They don't see you as a person who can be hurt. And if they do see it that you can be hurt, they're like, well, he deserves it because, all men are dogs, or all men are this, or whatever. It's very dehumanizing. Training by means of praise has the following advantages. It makes the object of praise dependent. For praise to be worth something, it has to come from a higher source. Thus, the object of praise lifts the praise giver to a superior level. Well, that's true. I didn't think about that. Right. If you're looking for praise, I guess, yeah, it puts her up there, doesn't it? Especially if you're dependent on it. It creates an addict. Without praise, he soon no longer knows whether or not he is worth something and forgets the ability to identify with himself. I think this is a reason why some men are absolutely lost after a divorce. Because they're just like, how do I know? Like, I guess I'm a failure now, or like, I don't know. The last installment of this series, talking about marriage being sort of like an institution, maybe a little bit like. So the men are institutionalized, and then when it's over, they don't quite know what to do. Like Brooks from Shawshank Redemption. He couldn't function in the outside world. He couldn't. Brooks was here. So was Red. Okay? Remember that. Red made it. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, please hit the like button. subscribe to the channel, and share the show with your favorite feminist or anyone else that you think might enjoy it. Lola is sitting right there. She reminds me. I know if I don't mention her, you guys are gonna be like, "Where's Lola? What's she doing?" She's mad at me. She wants her dinner, and she's mad at me that she hasn't had it before I make a video. So she's facing the other way. Okay, where were we? Creates an addict. Yep. It increases his productivity. Praise is most effectively meted out, not for the same achievements, but for increasingly higher ones. Yeah, until he can't anymore. And then, you're not making me happy. The moment a male child has been rewarded by a warm smile and by the customary inane kind of encouraging adult baby talk for using his pot, like his potty, I think, and not wetting his bed, or for drinking the last drop in his bottle, he is caught up in a vicious circle. He will repeat the actions which called forth praise and endearments. And if at any time recognition is not granted, he will do everything in his power to regain it. The happiness he feels when praise is received will already have assumed the proportions of a. This may be another spot where I disagree with Esther, because I do think it is the mother's job to praise their children, encourage their children, love their children, etc. Be that safe place for them. However, it needs to be balanced by the paternal side, right? Where life's realities are taught, where structure is given. And the perfect balance between those two is what makes parents. It's what rears a child. But I am not a secular person, and Ms. Vilar very much is. So I'd like to know how she would like for a mother to respond when the little boy or little girl has used the potty and not wet the bed. What do you think she should do? Good, that's what it's expected of you. I mean, what about, I just couldn't, I don't know how to not praise a little child. I don't know how to not do that. You know what I mean? I don't think that that's wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think any of that warmth and that encouragement and praise is wrong. I think when that's the only thing and that's how it continues, right? And there's no paternal balance, there's no fatherly lead, that's when you have a serious problem, because then the only source is mother. And by and large, she's going to twist that to hold on to him and control him because she sees him as hers. There's a reason the children have the father's last name. Just saying. During the first 2 years of life, a mother does not discriminate between boys and girls. I don't think that's true, actually, because boys are much more affectionate and loving and cuddling and snuggly, and the mothers respond to that differently than how the little girls are. So, once again, not totally on board with what Ms. Vilar is saying, but it's very valuable nonetheless. So let's go with what she's saying. The female infant is submitted to the same form of manipulation until the principles of hygiene are absorbed. That's when kids used to be potty trained before age 2. That doesn't happen anymore because fathers aren't there. What the heck is going on with this? I don't know if it just glitched or what, but anyway. our screen. I don't know what's happening here. All right, well, I think the Wi-Fi is struggling just a bit. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. All right, hopefully that'll help. I'm sorry. And lots of Wi-Fi struggles. Hygiene are absorbed, but from that moment on, the education of the two sexes follows very different paths. The older the girl grows, the more highly conditioned she becomes in the art of exploiting others. While a boy is increasingly manipulated into becoming an object of exploitation. Toys play an important part in this early manipulation. The mother will first stimulate the playfulness of her children, and then she will exploit it. The girl child will be given dolls with all the necessary paraphernalia. Boy, this doesn't happen now. They all have a screen, don't they? Sure do. So this is what they used to give girls: prams, dolls' beds, and miniature tea sets. The boys will be given everything a girl never has. I smell a feminist. Meccano sets, electric trains, miniature race cars, and airplanes. Thus, the girl is conditioned right from the start to identify with her mother, to fit herself into the role of woman. Dolls are praised or scolded as mother praises and scolds. It is child's play to her to absorb the principles of leadership. A girl's education, like a boy's, is based on praise, meted out to her. However, only when she identifies with the female role, so that she will never want to be anything but feminine. The standard set of values will inevitably be women's forever, since only women can judge how good their own role is. That's a problem. Men are taught that women's role is inferior, hence there is no cause to praise women. The women require it. The women love it, the attention and everything. And girls don't get those toys anymore. Phones, and I don't even know what toys. I think I babysat for that girl. She had Barbies. She had those brat dolls. There's no motherhood being taught or passed on. There's nothing good about motherhood that the little girls are taught to identify with. It's funny that Ms. Vilar thought that it seems she looks down on celebrating the role of mother. She seems to really look down on that whole thing. Ah, boy. Okay. A male child is constantly praised for everything except for playing with miniature humans. He builds model dams, bridges, and canals, takes toy cars apart to see how they work, shoots toy thingies that do bang bangs, and practices on a small scale all the things he will need later in life when he is providing for a woman or building and maintaining society, which someone has to do, someone who's strong enough and capable enough, and that's men. The thing is that because they do all that, because they're responsible for all of those things, women have duties and responsibilities too. And that would be to listen and submit to your husband, your father, what have you. And I know people freak out about that, but I will give you the plane analogy again. The pilot has the responsibility of getting the plane from point A to point B safely. Everybody on board safe. That's his responsibility. But that's why he can kick anybody off the plane. Captain's orders are captain's orders. They will be followed because he's got that responsibility. Nobody questions that. Well, the random crazy person that's getting kicked off the plane does, but you know what I'm saying? Like, People get it. That's the way society has to be. The people who are in charge of getting us from point A to point B safely and, all of those things have the authority. You don't give the authority to the passengers on the plane, the loudest, most obnoxious passengers. That plane's not getting from point A to point B in that situation. And that's what we're doing. We're listening to some nutty females. You know what I mean? You don't do that if you want to function. You just don't. Everything starts to fall apart, and it is. What I say sounds extreme, I know, to our modern ears. But if you look at what's happening in our society, you look at birth rates, you look at war, you look at, people dressing up in, dresses and putting on lipstick and stuff who are not of that gender. They're having problems. And it won't maintain. Anyway, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know. Okay. By the time he reaches school age, the average boy is already well versed in the basic principles of mechanics, biology, and electrical engineering. By the time he reaches school age, excuse you, little miss. Sorry. Please like the video. We have really gone downhill to say that the little boy is already well versed in those things. All learned from personal experience. He can build wooden huts and defend them in make-believe wars. The more initiative he shows, the more he is praised. Woman wants him to develop to the point where he knows more than she does. Not anymore, they don't. His knowledge must be superior to hers in everything concerning work, for woman cannot survive without man. Yeah, but they don't think that's true anymore. I don't even know if they thought that was true here, but it is. For woman, man is really a kind of machine, if rather an unusual one. Her ideal, if she could define it, would be a robot capable of thought, of programming itself, of continuing to develop and produce an ideal set of functions to meet each new situation. Scientists, too, are working on the development of such robots who will work for them, make decisions for them, think for them, and put the results of their labor at their disposal. But these robots will be constructed from non-living matter. Wow. Prophetic. Long before man is in a position to his own way of life, he will have formed the necessary addiction to praise. He will be happy only when his work brings him praise. And because he is an addict, his need will increase. And with it, the type of achievement so much praised by his woman. This male need could, of course, be satisfied by working feverishly in the interest of his own addiction. He has no time to help others. Yeah, men used to work more with each other, for each other, you know what I'm saying? Not so much looking for the praise. And it's not just praise, it's like, it's just bare minimum to know that he's okay. You know what I mean? They didn't used to have to check in with a woman to know that they had value, to know that what they were doing was okay. Like, am I okay now? Is this okay now? They didn't used to have that. They had a confidence in themselves where they didn't need that, have that addiction. Bless you. I think she does that on purpose. It's very cute. So what I have not seen Ms. Vilar talk about is history at all. She just seems to be talking about this is how it is, this is what men do, this is what women do, but she doesn't compare it to, say, 100 years before that or anything of the sort. And I don't see a prescription either, and it could be that I'm missing it. I would like to look for that as we continue to read. Okay. The male need could, of course, be satisfied by another man, but as each man is working feverishly in the interest of his own addiction, right, he has no time to help others. Indeed, man exists, as it were, in a state of constant antagonistic competition with other men, right? It is one of the reasons why he loses no time in getting his own private, oh boy, oh Lord have mercy, I'm so sorry, you guys, of this word. Panegyrist, Panegyrist. I know you guys are going to tell me exactly what that means and all that stuff right now, because you're so smart with this stuff. One whose praise will be his exclusive right. Someone who will always be at home waiting to tell him when he has been good and just how good he has been. It is apparently only by chance that woman is best suited to this role, but in fact, she has been preparing all her life for it, waiting to assume it. Backwards. So funny, because I don't think she was ringing alarm bells, and I don't think the people back in this time really understood where this was headed, right? But the fact that she was so maligned, and this book was, hey, you. Now I told you she's like a cat, just gonna knock things over. Everything's fine. Lola, stop it. Anyways, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, we're professionals here. Waiting to assume it. Yeah. Bad girl. I'll remember it. It is rare for a man, a successful artist or scientist, for instance, to be able to conquer his addiction to the extent that he is satisfied by another man's praise. If he does, it is really only women. Oh, about where it was going. Yeah, she was maligned. The book was practically banned. It's like they wanted to silence it. I believe, tinfoil hat, because the overlords knew where they wanted to take it, and they couldn't let the alarm bells be heard, right? They couldn't let the progress they were making, and always be wary of that word, because progress towards what? HE double hockey sticks, maybe. So they couldn't let, and here we are. But this was a step in that direction. Okay, Wi-Fi. Okay. If he does, is it really only women he has managed to escape? Never the craving itself. Once a particular field of work has brought a man success and financial security, it is rare for him to test his abilities in another sphere, attempting to satisfy his curiosity. His supply of praise may be dangerously reduced. Like Miro with his dots and lines technique, John Strauss with his waltzes, and Tennessee Williams with his plays about psychotic women. Sorry, it's funny. He will stick firmly to his successful technique. The risk of attempting to be the measure of his own success is too great for him to take. Right? The risk. And that's what I said. These overbearing mothers who act, like, even if there's a man in the house, when the woman's running the show, you get a lot of single mother outcomes. And this is what the first outcome that we started to see with the overbearing mothers who praise, and then they don't let the father raise the boy to manhood, where he can know that he is the measure of his own success. One is even tempted to think that there can be nothing very positive about an artist's personal style. Take a man like Samuel Beckett, sorry, jeez. For 20 years, he has produced a series of Godot replicas, and surely not for pleasure. After all, he is an intelligent man. He avoids risk the way an alcoholic avoids a cure. Yet, if only he could free himself from his conditioned behavior, he would probably do something quite different. Perhaps he might design planes. The reliable construction of his plays hints at a scientific talent, or grow rare plants. He might even, perhaps, just once, write a comedy. Surely so much success is bound to drive away the depths of despair. It might even turn out to be a success with the public. But no, the risk is too great for a carefully manipulated man. Better go on writing plays about the absurdity of the vital instinct, then at least he can be certain of praise. Yep. Men have been controlled like that, manipulated like that for a long time. I'm not sure when it started. It's very interesting to hear Ms. Vilar's take on this, to inform me that this overbearing mother type stuff, where the father is really not the head of the family. He's not really allowed to father his children. You know what I mean? He's not really the boss. He's not teaching the children, the sons especially, to take risks. And it's probably at this point in time that he was, simping for the daughters. This is probably the point in time where, well, I don't know when it started, but simping for the daughters, making her his little princess, like, no man is ever going to be good enough for you. You deserve the world, blah, 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 blah. It's a horrible thing to teach girls. Horrible. Because then whatever husband they get later is just, can never succeed, because the father has just made Wi-Fi issues. I've never had these type of Wi-Fi issues with StreamYard before, but with the son, he's not teaching him to take risks. He's allowing the son to be protected and stay near the mother's bosom where it's comfortable, instead of get out into the world with the father. It's just sad. It's sad. And it's sort of like, did you ever really have a chance? Did your mother set you up for what happened with your wife to happen? That's a really depressing question, but I think a necessary one. And I'm not saying you need to hate your mom or anything like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying we need to take an honest look at how we got here individually, and then how we got here as a society. Because then with that amount of truth, I think it brings some peace. I do. I think then you go, all right, well, that's what that was. Now let's carry on. And you don't need that praise. That praise is not who you are. Whatever compliments she gave you, whatever, you're always better than that anyway, because of your intrinsic value. Your value doesn't come from a woman's compliment or woman's opinion. That's not where your value comes from. It never did. It never did. But your mind was twisted to think that it does. And this is why men cry out for their mothers when they're passing. I think it's true. Maybe some of it's good. Like I said, mothering is good. Loving your mother is good. But it's been used to control you. And it's like you were never able to forge ahead and make your own path and be your own person. But I know a lot of you are now. It's unfortunate that you had to learn it the way you did, because that's not a good thing. I hope that you've gotten to that place of peace with it. And I know a lot of you have. And if you haven't, there's guys in the comments that have figured it out. And I know you guys are always, encouraging one another and giving, helpful tips and stuff like that, as only you can do. I can't do it as a woman. It's not appropriate anyways. But I can tell you that you need to protect your peace. You need to feed your souls. And I also am going to tell you that I love you. And I'm sorry for all of this. But I will see you on the next one.